Hey everybody, I'm Chef Tom with allthingsbbq.com, and this is Brisket Quiche. That's right, today we are cooking quiche, that beautiful breakfast item composed of a flaky pie crust and filled with eggy custard and any number of internal garnishes. Now quiche really is one of those foods that you can eat any time of day. It's great at breakfast with some fruit and a cup of coffee. It's great with a glass of wine and a salad for dinner. But the thing I love most about quiche is that it's such a great item to utilize leftovers. Whatever you've got in the fridge, whatever you've got in the pantry, it's all fair game. Now for us today, that happens to be brisket. We've got leftover Umami Bomb Brisket, and if you haven't checked that video out, make sure you go watch it because it's a really good one. But before we can get into the fillings that we're building around our Umami Bomb Brisket, the first thing we have to do is roll out our pie dough and blind bake it on the grill. All right, so we're starting out with some homemade pie dough. We're not gonna go over how to make this pie dough today because we've done that in the past, and you can go check out our apple galette video on how to make pâte brisée. Or of course, you could just go to the store and buy some pie dough, whatever you like. Quiche tends to be kind of a utilizer of all things leftover, so if you're looking to do a little bit less work, that's one place you can cut a corner. So we're gonna be baking this in a large 10-inch cast iron skillet. So I need to roll this out large enough to cover that entire space. All right, so once I've kind of got it started in the shape we want, we'll just go ahead and keep rolling and stretching until we get the distance we need. All right, so here's our 10-inch skillet. We maybe just need a little bit more to work all the way up around the edges. If you get some spots where the cracks start to work in here, don't worry about it. We can kind of press those together as we get it into the skillet. Now we've got quite a bit of butter in our pie dough, but just to make sure we don't have any sticking, we're gonna spray this with a little duck fat, and then we'll come over the top with the dough. So we don't want to stretch the dough any further at this point. So what we're gonna do as we push this in is we're gonna lift it up and push it down. We want it to sit as relaxed as possible in there, because if we stretch this any further, when we bake it, it just sucks it all down. So we're going to be very intentional about pushing into the edges here, pushing down rather than pulling out. And then as we get it kind of settled in there, I'm just gonna push down even a little bit more, just pushing down and out at the same time to really secure that into place. Make sure that we don't get too much shrinkage. And then from here, I'm just gonna roll the tops down, kind of pressing them in right at the lip there. It's not the prettiest topping to a quiche, and you could just slice it off, but I like to have that little bit of extra dough right there at the ridge. And then I'll go one more time around the skillet, just pressing it in there. Now, if we were gonna bake something like an apple pie, I'd just throw the filling in here now and we'd bake it the way it is. But because of how wet the custard is for the quiche, we need to par bake this. We need to blind bake it. So what that means is we're gonna put some parchment in here, or some butcher paper in this case, weigh it down with something. We've got some dried beans, and then we're just gonna bake it until it's like lightly golden brown, because it is gonna get baked a second time, but we wanna make sure that the crust isn't just soggy in the end, so we have to give it that par bake initially. Now, whether it's parchment paper or butcher paper like we have here, the first thing I like to do is crumble this thing up. This makes it really easy to get all the way down into the edges of the pie dough. If you just put it in there, rigid as it is starting out, it's easier for that to pull away, and then you don't get the even blind bake that you want. So we'll press that down into all of the edges, and then just work it around the corners here, right over the edge, corners of the skillet, the round skillet. And then like I mentioned, we've got some dried beans that we're gonna throw on top of our butcher paper. I usually just keep these in a container in the pantry, and you can reuse them again and again. Today we're cooking on the Yoder Smokers YS640S Pellet Grill. I've got it set to 375 for the blind bake. Now, I've already got one of these in there, so this is gonna make this go a lot faster, but I'll show you what it looks like in about an hour's time. So let's slide this one over. Add the raw one to the grill, and then let's take a peek in here. So as you can see, it's shrunk away from the skillet a bit, it's pulled in. That tells us it's cooked. It's got a little bit of texture to it, lightly golden brown. On the bottom, we can see that it's cooked, but it still has that little bit of moisture on the surface. That's fine. We've taken that far enough. Now I'm gonna go ahead and remove the beans. And there we have our par-baked shell. And I'm just gonna throw it back on there just for about 5 minutes to kind of start to warm up the top again. And we're gonna paint it with a little bit of egg wash to make a seal. So let's talk about fillings. When we're talking about quiche fillings, there's really two things that we're talking about: the custard itself and the internal garnish. And when I say internal garnish, I just mean the brisket today and anything else that we choose to complement that brisket. So for the brisket, I've chosen some caramelized onions, some shiitake mushrooms, which are also in the injection for the Umami Bomb Brisket. We've got some greens in the form of kale, a little bit of aromatic with the garlic, and then a spicy kick from the horseradish. Then we cream it all out with a couple of cheeses. Got some cheddar and some pecorino. So the onion, if you like, you can just dice it down. I'm gonna slice it because I want a little bit of extra texture, a little bit of extra bite in here. I wanna notice what we're chewing on here with our internal garnishes. So we're gonna go relatively thin, but keep it in a half-moon slice. And going into the skillet at the same time will be our shiitake mushrooms. And yeah, we are gonna have to cook all of these down in the skillet a bit. You see, mushrooms and onions especially have a lot of moisture content, and we can't let all of that moisture cook into the quiche filling or it's gonna mess up the consistency of the eggs and that custard. So we're gonna try and reduce out the liquid while we cook down our veggies. I'm gonna start with a little bit of fat. Got the sprayed duck fat here. A couple tablespoons. Throw in our onions. Throw in our shiitake. This thing's hissing at me a little hot right now. I'm gonna take it down to about a medium-low heat, and we'll give the onions and the mushrooms a fairly gentle cook. While we're at it, we'll add some of that steak seasoning I was talking about. We got the Cattleman's Grill, California tri-tip. That rub's got great flavors in there to complement beef, and a little bit of salt as well to help draw some of that moisture out. All right, we're starting to get some color on these. They're getting softened up, but they're not all the way there yet. I'm gonna turn this to low while we prep the rest of the filling. So here we have just some curly kale. We're gonna cut out the spines. We don't want those in there. A little bit too tough to chew on. And then this stuff, we're just gonna roll it up and mince it down. Spinach would work great here as well. Again, utilization, whatever's in the refrigerator. Now this will cook down a bit, but I would say about 1 cup minced up is gonna be plenty. Also got a little bit of garlic here. Crush that down. Get rid of our skins and mince it up. Now for the cheeses, we've got that pecorino, which actually has bits of truffle in it, so that's gonna add to the umami. I'm gonna grate that down. We're doing just a couple ounces of each of these cheeses here. The other cheese we have is a smoked cheddar, a smoked white cheddar, so add a little extra smokiness here. Whatever you're using, I would say the more firm, or at least not super soft, the better, because again, we don't want to add too much moisture to the custard. And then next we're gonna get into that leftover brisket here. So I've got about an 8-ounce chunk here. Some good fat left behind. We can throw that into the skillet. Plenty of flavor in there. And then our brisket, lots of good beefiness, lots of great flavor on the outside, a little bit of fat to add to it. We're just gonna take this and dice it down into bite-sized pieces. So we're gonna throw that brisket in. It's cold right now, so we'll warm that up, get the juices flowing. At the same time, gonna throw in our kale and our garlic. This won't take long, just a couple of minutes here. Now we're getting that brisket aroma coming out of it. Boy, that smells incredible. Brisket's warmed through. We're gonna shut this off now and move on to making our custard and preparing our pie shell. So we're gonna prepare a custard here using 4 eggs, and I like to do about a half cup of cream per egg. But before we get the cream in there, we just want to give our pie shell a little coating of egg wash. As if you can see in here kind of along this crack, and then really just in general, what we'd like to do is create a little bit of a seal here with the egg wash. So the egg wash kind of cooks onto the dough, creates a little moisture barrier, and this helps to keep the quiche from being soggy, or the crust from being soggy in the end. So we're adding to the 4 eggs 2 cups of heavy cream. And these amounts can vary depending on what size skillet or pie pan you're using, so just keep that ratio of 1 egg to 1/2 cup of cream in mind. And then just to kick things up a little bit, we're gonna add about a tablespoon of prepared horseradish to the custard itself. Now we're ready to start building some layers for the internal garnish. We'll start with a little bit of cheese in the bottom here. Add some of our brisket filling over that. And if you don't need all of your filling, don't put it all in there. Don't overcrowd it just because you made it. I promise you someone will snack on it. Start to add in some of that custard. Let's do a little bit more cheese. I don't know how much of a difference it makes, to be honest, that we're building these gently in layers. I mean, maybe it's always just gonna be that your filling sinks to the bottom. But I guess I've done this enough to convince myself you can get a little better distribution if you try. So fill that custard right up to the top. Kind of work our garnish in there. Last little bit of cheese right over the top. And we'll give it a little color and a little salt with another shake of our steak rub Cattleman's Tri-Tip. All right, guys, we're gonna turn this down from 375 to 350 now, just to bake slightly more gentle. Put this on the second shelf. I like it right next to the stack where the air moves a little bit quicker. We can get a little bit extra browning on top, but we're really just waiting for this custard to set up now. So we'll be back in about 45 minutes to check on the progress. All right, guys, well, this is what 45 minutes looks like. As you can see, still a lot of movement, so we've got some time to go, but we're starting to get some color on the top, some good signs of things happening there. It's been about 1 hour and 10 minutes total cook time now, and our quiche is looking fantastic. It's set up just right. Let's take a look. Look at that. Golden brown on top. We give it the jiggle test. It's set to the center, but still got a nice little jiggle to it. This baby's ready to come off. Now, unfortunately, there's no pretty way to eat a quiche when it's hot out of the oven, or off the grill in this case. So now we just gotta let it cool down. This is something that's great to eat just a little bit above room temperature. So we're gonna let it cool off so we can slice through it. Well, this is what it looks like after it's rested for about 30 minutes. It's cooled down quite a bit. It's really set up. You can see it's a lot more solidified than it was. So we're gonna try and slice in here now without tearing this up too much. It's still a bit warm. Oh, and we've got some nice big internal garnishes that might mean that you don't get the cleanest cut, but I think we've cooled down just enough here to get it out. Boom, there we go. Yeah, our eggs are cooked to the center, and that's really all that we need. Other than that, we just need to give it a taste. Oh man, that is so creamy on the inside. You could use half and half in this recipe, but you won't get the richness out of it that you get with that heavy cream. And man, the brisket flavor is just penetrated throughout the entire thing now. You get a little bit of that barbecue feel to it. Not typical of every quiche, but not something I would ever say no to, that's for sure. This brisket's super tender, you know, it's warmed through, it's not overcooked, nothing's dried out because there's so much liquid in there. Cheesy, creamy, all kinds of great umami and savory flavors going on in there. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to check out allthingsbbq.com for all of the products featured in today's video. If you enjoyed the recipe, hit that subscribe button. If you have any questions or comments or there's anything you'd like to see me cook, let me know in the comment section down below, and let's be good to one another. For more recipes, tips, and techniques, head over to allthingsbbq.com/thesauce. All Things Barbecue, where barbecue legends are made.